Hello and welcome to the Organic Beehive. Today's video is a little different. Sometimes it feels a little bit uncomfortable for me to just talk to a camera, but this week's topic really elicits me explaining things a little bit more than say a tutorial. So here I am, and today's video we are talking all about the supplies that you'll need if you're looking to start seeds indoors. Such an exciting time. Winter is a little slower. It's time to rest and reflect, and kind of toward the end of winter we get a little bit antsy for the warmer weather. So here I am talking about starting seeds. So I hope that you sit down and get comfortable. I have some tea here with me. I am trying some milk thistle tea. It's supposed to be good for your liver. And there are so many signs pointing to the fact that I need to work on my liver, and I never listen. So here is my attempt at doing so. And today I'm going to share with you the supplies that I have gotten along the way through my failures and experiments. I'm going to share those with you today. What is the point of starting your seeds indoors? Number one really depends on where you live, what region of the country, what gardening zone you are in. Because if you are in a cooler region, your growing season isn't going to be as long as mine, where my gardening zone is 70. So we have really mild temperatures here. So I'm very grateful for the long growing season. But if you aren't as lucky, then I would highly recommend starting your seeds indoors because it gives you that head start. So then when your last frost date occurs, you have your plants ready to go. So again, for those cooler regions, growing seeds indoors is really great because it just gives you a head start if you have a shorter growing season. Number two, it is so much cheaper to get seeds than to buy seedlings from a nursery. So for around $3, you could get one packet of seeds, whatever seeds. I would say they generally go about $3. And in that packet, you get 100 seeds. Not to mention, if they're heirloom seeds, you don't have to buy any more seed packets after that. So it is a lot cheaper than, say, you were going to go to a nursery and buy seedlings. Those will probably run $3 for just one plant, one tomato plant. And that's probably on the cheaper end. So that is another reason to start your seeds indoors. And the third reason I like to start seeds indoors seems a little hypocritical for me to say because I try to get as close to nature as possible. But if you are a gardener, you have experienced losses because of maybe weather or pests. And when you have little plants that you're trying to take care of, that can make it really hard to keep them alive. And so when you're starting them indoors, you have a little bit more control over the circumstances. So I don't have to worry about pests if I'm inside, or squirrels or anything digging it up. And in the springtime, we get a lot of thunderstorms around here, and the strong winds can prove to be too strong for your plants and knock them down. Or, if you're just starting seeds, the rain itself can just wash them away. So there's a lot of variables that can happen outdoors. And so I like to start those fragile seeds inside where I have a little bit more control. Now that we went over the benefits of starting your seeds indoors, let's talk about the supplies. Now, I have a whole blog post written out with all the supplies that you need. I think when we see people talk about this, it can seem very daunting, very overwhelming, and I do not want you to stop before you even start. So I'm going to try and go over this in a way that seems very doable for you. So step number one, obviously, if you're going to start seeds indoors, is you need seeds. And I, in fact, did my last post was all about the companies that I approve of as far as like where I get my heirloom seeds. So I'm going to put that up here if you'd like to check it out. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. Supply number 2 that you will need for starting your seeds is soil. Now, again, I feel like this is really basic stuff. Like I might teach a kindergartner this. We all know that plants need soil to survive. But what kind of soil? You want a loose, crumbly soil with good organic materials. And those good organic materials are going to be what feeds the plant. I always look for organic, and there's a lot of brands out there, and I do have one linked in the blog post, and I can also put a link in the description below, but I hesitate to put a link from Amazon because, one, I was actually searching for myself. I've got the big box stores around here like Home Depot and Lowe's, and I wasn't really happy with what I saw there. So I thought there would be more options on Amazon. And the thing was that no matter what brand I was looking at, the reviews would talk about like these infestations of, gnats and mites and things that I don't want to deal with my seedlings, let alone inside my house. So I would strongly discourage you from purchasing soil on Amazon. My preference and what I would recommend to you is if you are going to get soil from a store local to your house, if they house them inside the store, you're going to have a better chance of not having any issues. I didn't want to start with that because now I feel like saying that it might scare you into thinking that all the soil is going to have those problems. I assure you, for the 3 to 4 years that I have used the soil for my indoor seeds, I have not had a problem. But I also have not bought from Amazon. Supply number 3 that you are going to need is a container. Now, you can get really creative when it comes to starting your seeds indoors. I think for the price, and if you plan on reusing them, it would be a great idea to get a seed starting kit. The seed starting kit is going to have the containers for your seeds in it. And it's going to have a few other supplies that I'm going to mention here in a second. But you're going to need a container. If you don't want to get a seed starting kit, that is absolutely okay. You can use what you have in your house, or you can use recycled items. So other things you can look for are, let's see, you could use egg cartons. You can use the compartments that the eggs are in, put the soil and the seeds in that. You could make your own paper pots. I've seen people make pots out of newspaper. I've seen people make pots out of toilet paper rolls. I have used those types of materials for my seeds before. I have used it as a container. And I will tell you this because they hold on to moisture really well. It's almost too well, and you might experience mold on the plants. Now, the mold isn't a bad thing. There are some things you can do to prevent it, but in my experience, the paper and cardboard containers will cause mold. Other things you could use, like Dixie cups, party cups, yogurt cups. Again, you can probably come up with an idea of your own. The biggest thing is you're going to, I'm just going to use my teacup as an example, you're going to want to poke a hole through the bottom for drainage, and that's it. Next up is the tray. So your container, you're going to need a tray to go under that container. If you have a seed starting kit, you're going to have a tray that comes with it. Really easy. Trays are going to help you with two things. First, it's going to be easier to carry. So I'm not going to go into this in today's video, but at some point you're going to be carrying your seedlings outside to harden off, and so it makes it much easier to carry all the seeds. Another reason is I use it, and this is the main reason why I like trays, is I use it because I bottom water my plants. So what I like to do is put the water in the tray. You don't need very much, maybe in half an inch, and the plants are going to suck up the water through that drainage hole. It'll moisten the soil, and the roots will suck up the water too, and it will guide the roots to grow downward, which is what you want. When I see that the water is all gone in the tray and the soil is looking a little dry, I will add some more. If you don't have the seed starting kit, you can use things around your house for a tray. You can use one of those like cafeteria trays. I don't know if you have that laying around the house. Who knows? But if you have something like that, or you see something like that at the thrift store, pick it up for seed starting. You can use a baking sheet. You can use a casserole dish. Basically anything that is going to be big enough to carry your seeds, as well as a lip so that you can pour water into it and it's not falling all over the place. So that is my tip for you. And number 5, the number 5 supply that you need for starting your seeds indoors is this. You need a lid. That's it. And again, if you got the seed starting kit, it's going to have that. So let me reiterate, your seed starting kit, if you purchase it from Home Depot or Lowe's, it runs, I don't know, at $5, and you're going to get the container, the tray, and the lid all together. So it does make it really easy. Again, you can get creative with your lid. You can use anything that is clear, that's gonna let sunlight penetrate it, and that's it. Like, you want it to cover your plants because you're making like this mini greenhouse. So if you're not gonna do the seed starting kit, I know people who have done mason jars. They'll put mason jars over it. Maybe you could do like a clear casserole dish upside down. Gosh, I've even seen cling wrap, like poking holes in the cling wrap. I don't know about that one, but again, you can use what you have on hand and get creative. You just want it to be clear and go over the plant. I do have some bonus supplies for you. These aren't necessary, but if you see yourself doing this long term, I would view this as an investment because you will use this every year to come. Bonus tip number 1 would be to get some sort of shelving just to organize it. Once you get really good at growing seeds, especially indoors, it becomes a little bit of an addiction, and you find yourself wanting to try out more and more things. And then you wonder where you're gonna have room for all of this. So shelving is going to be really great. I just looked for a cheap like wire rack on Amazon. Otherwise, if you have something laying around the house that, like an old bookshelf, that'll work. Go on Facebook Marketplace. You could try a thrift store and just find a really basic shelf. If you're really handy, maybe you can make one with scrap pieces of wood, if you like that as a hobby. But my only tip as far as shelving goes is make sure that it has enough space, because your plant, well, it has enough space between each shelf, because as your plants grow, you don't want it to meet the maximum height with your shelf. Bonus tip number 2 is grow lights. I wish I could say this is not necessary, but if you're serious about starting seeds indoors, I would seriously consider buying grow lights for yourself. I know people who will just put their seeds by a windowsill. If you do this, your best bet would be a south-facing window. But with that said, I still feel like you can have problems doing this. So I don't want to say it's necessary, maybe experiment, but in the long run, again, I personally would get grow lights because they change the game for my seed starting. So what you might notice, if your little seedling is not getting enough light, it will get super tall and you'll have like 2 sad little leaves at the top. And most likely it will be pointing in the direction of the sun, which means it needs more light. The grow lights are going to prevent your plants from getting leggy like this. Actually, these last 2 that I'm going to share with you are optional. I purchased a heating mat for my seeds. So what that essentially does is it just, in the winter, obviously it's cold, but in my house, I like it to leave it cooler as well. I keep it mid to upper 60s in the house. The plants can germinate in it. They're going to germinate faster with the heating mat. So, like I said, take it or leave it, but I think it just gives your plants a better chance of thriving. Other things you can do, and I've done this in a pinch, is in my medicine cabinet, I have a heating pad, for aches and pains and things like that. I used that one year. I think I had it on low or warm. I kind of experimented with it. The best way to experiment and to know it's working is the tray that you have over your plants is going to fog up and you're going to have condensation. And that's what you want, because that's showing that it is warm and humid, which these seeds love and what they need for germination. So if you're noticing that's not happening, then a heating mat might be good for you. I'm going to leave a link of some in the description below. You don't need that many because you're going to be starting seeds at all different times depending on what you're growing. So I don't think you need that much. If a heat mat is not in the budget for you right now, that's okay. Again, get creative. How many times have I said creative? You can use Christmas lights under your tray. I've seen people use rope lights. If you have an older home and you have a radiator, put it on your radiator. There are, again, I just love the ingenuity that people come up with for these things. It's really amazing. And bonus tip number 5, again, not a necessity, but it will up your seed starting game, and that is a fan. I mentioned toward the beginning of the video that when you're using paper pots, that they are more likely to mold. So that air circulation from the fan is going to help prevent that. Another thing is when you're indoors, obviously we're trying to mimic as much of the outdoors as we can, whether that's through grow lights or the heat mats trying to get the temperature perfect, or with the fan trying to create wind. You have control over it though. So put the fan on low, maybe an hour, add your weight. I just do it when I think about it, but the fan is going to mimic the wind, and it's just going to help the stem of your plant acclimate a little bit better to the outdoors, as well as make sure it's working out the plant so the stem is going to get stronger. Obviously we want strong plants in the end, so the fan is really going to help with that. As far as what I would recommend for a fan, honestly, whatever you have lying around the house. Doesn't matter the size. I think last year I had an air filter, like an oscillating air filter. I just stuck that right in front of my seeds last year. This year I found, this was a really great find, and I wasn't intending on using this for my seeds, but it was toward the end of December. No, it was the end of December, where the dollar bin at Target had portable fans. So it had a clip, you could clip it on wherever, it's battery powered, and so I'm just gonna clip it on the shelf. But they were $5. So that was a really great find. If you happen to see that next year, get yourself some for your seed starting. Otherwise, a box fan, again, whatever you have lying around. And those are the supplies you may or may not need for starting your seeds indoors. For more information on all of this, because I felt like I talked a lot, I have a blog post that lists all the supplies that you need, both necessary and optional, and I also have a breakdown of all the costs, so you know exactly what to budget for next year or this year if you are ready to start your gardening.
And if you have a creative thing that you've done and you've used for starting your season doors, let us know your tips in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.